Hello there, friends! Welcome to another episode of In the Kitchen with Becca! So close, so uncomfortably close. So this week is Thanksgiving. So here in my house, we, and by we I mean me, are in full preparation mode for our feast at the end of the week to celebrate what we're thankful for and all the other things Thanksgiving is. So naturally I'm making 15 different courses for 2 people and a dog. I don't know the definition of overkill. Anyway, so something that what I made for the first time last year that I actually really loved was pumpkin pie. Now I know pumpkin pie is tradition in Thanksgiving, but for me it was always just kind of something that was there, that was tradition, and blah blah. Mostly I ate it for the crust and the whipped cream. But last year, it was Neil and I's first Thanksgiving away from our family. And so I really wanted to make a lot of dishes that were just traditional, that my family always had, and so pumpkin pie was one of them. And I actually made it from scratch, crust, filling and all, and it was my favorite pumpkin pie ever. Now the actual recipe isn't anything outrageous, isn't anything crazy really. What I wanted to do this year for you guys was a recent obsession that I found myself in that applies to this video, story time. So oftentimes when I can't sleep, I go on Pinterest. Since it's just kind of pictures of food and pretty things, it doesn't really mess with me too much. One evening, I went down a Pinterest rabbit hole and I have become obsessed with pretty Pinterest pies. You heard me, pretty Pinterest pies. Let me show you some examples. So here's what I mean by pretty Pinterest pies. Really, really ornate braiding and decorations on pies. Oh, just look at that. It's so pretty. Now my pies tend to be on the rustic side of things, as in I normally don't really care about how it looks because it's pretty much just me eating it, so I just put it on the pan and we're good to go. So with this, I really wanted to take this opportunity to try something new and care a little bit more how my pies looked. So with your help and your support, I want to try making a pretty Pinterest-worthy pie. I'm going to tie my hair back and put on a shirt that's not black because I'm dealing with flour and I cannot be trusted to not get flour everywhere. So let's change this appearance and try to make a Pinterest-worthy pie. Yeah!
Okay, so we're actually going to start off with the same buttermilk crust recipe as I did in my apple pie video. So if you want that recipe, go ahead and click on that link down below for that exact crust recipe. Okay, so for our filling, we're just going to take a can of pumpkin, put it into a bowl, and we're going to mix it with an immersion blender. You can also put it in a food processor, but this just makes it extra silky. We're going to add 3/4 cup of sugar with 2 heaping tablespoons of pumpkin pie spice and mix that into the pumpkin. Next, we're going to add 2 room temperature beaten eggs and whisk that in. Next, we're going to add about 2 tablespoons of maple syrup, but this is to taste from now on. Then I did about 3/4 of a can of sweetened condensed milk, but just due to taste, depending on maple syrup and sweetened condensed milk, and mix until fully combined. Next, we're going to take our pie crust, and we're going to start decorating. I found this edge of my wine opener and it made a really cool pattern in the crust, so I went ahead and did that around the entire pie. This made a really cool design, but also it scalloped the edges, which I really liked, so I was really excited to see how that baked. Next, you're going to take our adorable owl spatula and pour the pumpkin filling into the crust. You're going to smooth it out. You're going to bake it for 15 minutes at 425 and then 40 minutes at 350. Next, we're going to start our decorations. Go ahead and roll out another pie crust and you're going to roll it out into a long rectangle. We are going to be doing braids and lattice here, so we want to make sure the braids reach around the entire pie crust. I got the measurement at the circumference of the pie crust, so I had a rough idea of how long I needed my dough to be. So I rolled it out into a rectangle until it was about 26 inches long. Once I got there, I cut off the rough edges until I was left with a very clean, sharp rectangle. Then I made some straight lines and made thin strips for my braids and for my lattices. Be careful to not smush the end, the end of the pie crust with the measuring tape. Next, you're going to take 3 thin ribbons. You're going to seal them on one end, and you're going to begin braiding. Be gentle with your pie crust. Make sure to not pull on the ends as you're going through, as you're pulling them over and keeping them separated. I did that and it got very thin at the end. Just go ahead and be very gentle with it. Make sure to have a lot of flour on your work surface to make sure if your kitchen gets warm, your dough will stay separate and not stick. Before the pie is done baking, we're going to take it out of the oven once the custard is set, just a little bit, and we're going to begin decorating. If you find your braid is too short, don't try to stretch it because it'll break, just like this one did. If it does break, take it on the side, repair it as much as possible, but if it doesn't repair all the way, just put some leaves on it. We're going to attach our second braid and make a nice circle around the crust. Then we're going to start our lattice. My intention was to do the lattice before I put the braids down, but I had forgotten. And by the time I realized the braids had gotten too warm to take off, so I just did it in the center anyway. So I put 3 down and then added some across. And I just kind of trimmed as I went along and did the lattice pattern. At the end, I trimmed off the excess and tucked it under the braid. Then, with my excess dough, I just free-handed some leaves. I baked that for about 20 more minutes in the 350-degree oven and got this beautiful pie.
And we're back. So I think it went pretty well. The braiding was actually a lot simpler than I thought it was going to be. It took a little bit to get in the rhythm of it, but once I kind of stopped trying to plop the entire thing and stretch the dough strings, it made it a lot simpler when it's kind of just placing it over and under and over and under. I do wish I had done the braids and the strings ahead of time because the bake time was a lot more uneven, so the outer crust was a lot more brown than the actual decorations. So when I was baking it, I noticed the edges were getting pretty brown, so I covered them in aluminum foil, which helped, but still I wish I would have pulled out the pie earlier and done the decorations. I also would have loved if I did the lattice first and then put braids down, but whatever. I honestly think it turned out okay. Overall, I think the pumpkin pie was a great pie to practice on. The orange and the brown of the pie crust on top kind of just melded together. It didn't make the pie crust jump out much as I wanted, but that's okay. This was really just my first time practicing with it, and I think it was nice just to have an even surface. Even if it was hot, that kind of affected the cook a little bit, but even if it was hot to deal with while I was decorating, but overall I think it went really well, and I'm really excited to kind of experiment with this and do it a few more times. It was actually pretty fun to do all the measuring and rolling and being a lot more precise. It reminded me of a few French pastry recipes that I do that I might show you soon. I think it was a great practice, and I hope you guys, if you want to make your pumpkin pies more decorative or more festive, I think this approach that I took, I think it definitely helped, because off the bat, before I did some research or really thinking. I just probably would have put it on the custard raw and it would have sunk down and been a disaster. So I hope this helped and was a nice tool. So if you want to dress up your pumpkin pie, you can. Let me know if you've got any Pinterest obsessions that you want me to try out or any recipes that you really want to see. I'm working on a big Thanksgiving special for you guys just to kind of show you what I do for Thanksgiving to kind of make it special. So that'll be coming out this weekend, and then after that, give me recipes. Let me do it. So thanks again guys for watching. If you like the video, hit subscribe or just keep an eye on my Facebook page, and I'll see you next time. Bye.